as I mentioned, the first story today is surrounding Governor Andrew Cuomo, and there's news stories now that the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn are actually investigating what's taking place out of New York. We haven't really spoken much about this story yet because it was just kind of, political bloviating back and forth. There was a long period of time where Andrew Cuomo was sort of glorified, deified almost in this country. I think he won some Hollywood award for something, wrote a book about leadership and, beating COVID and what a hero he was. A lot of people in the mainstream media, the sort of corporate media, were glorifying him. And he was sort of the counterweight to the president, to Donald Trump when he was still in office. And they would say, look, what an awful job Trump is doing. Cuomo over here, though, is doing an excellent job. And so they're sort of deifying him and putting him on a pedestal. Well, now that Trump's no longer there, now that they no longer sort of need this bludgeon, that they can sort of do this compare and contrast type of situation between the two individuals, well, the Cuomo is now under the sun. He's got a big microscope that is bearing down upon him. And it's all surrounding this nursing home situation where the allegation was that people who were sick with COVID, who were elderly, were being taken out of the nursing homes. They were being treated at hospitals and then being sent back into the nursing homes with active cases of COVID. Of course, that doesn't make any sense because the elderly population are very susceptible to serious repercussions if they catch COVID. So to send basically infected people back into the nursing home facilities was not a good idea, right? And I think that anybody back in that time would have made that distinction. I've been somebody who's been trying to be lenient on a lot of the politicians. COVID is something that is new. It is earth-shattering, right? The whole globe has come to a standstill over this thing. And so you can expect there to be mistakes being made as we go through the process. Now, you can pick which side of the aisle you're on, and I think the mistakes that you believe happened will sort of be in comportment with your ideology. But with Cuomo, I think people on both sides of the aisle are saying, what the heck were you doing sending sick people back into nursing homes? We knew basically from the very start of COVID that is not a good recipe. We knew that the elderly were the most susceptible to this thing, so just kind of didn't make much sense. But let's go through this story. Now we have the federal government that's doing a little bit of an investigation into what was going on. The FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn. This story comes over from TimesUnion.com. It says U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI, they have launched an investigation that is examining, at least in part, the actions of Governor Andrew Cuomo's coronavirus task force in its handling of nursing homes and other long-term care facilities during the pandemic. The probe by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York is apparently in its early stages, and it's focusing on the work of some of the senior members of the governor's task force, according to a person with direct knowledge. As we publicly said, this is a quote from the DOJ. The DOJ has been looking into this for months. So this is a quote, from Andrew Azzopardi, a spokesman for the governor. We said publicly, the DOJ has been looking into this for months. We have been cooperating with them. We will continue to do so. Azzopardi did not disclose whether any members of the administration have been interviewed or if they've been served with any subpoenas. And so, it's sort of, yeah, we're acknowledging that this investigation is taking place. We know that it's going on, but that's kind of it for as far as information comes about the details from the governor's spokesperson. Nearly 3 weeks after the governor's task force was announced last year, the State Department issued an order directing nursing homes and other long-term care facilities that they must accept residents who were being discharged from hospitals, even if they were still testing positive for the infectious disease, so long as they were able to care for them properly. That directive, which was rescinded less than 2 months later, has been the focus of a firestorm of criticism directed at Cuomo, including allegations that the order, which the governor said was based on federal guidance, had contributed to the high number of fatalities of nursing home residents in New York. The assertion was largely dismissed in a report by the Department of Health that was released in July. The controversy boiled over again last week when DeRosa, in a closed-door meeting with Democrats in the state legislature with the authority to subpoena and investigate the governor's administration, told the group the administration had withheld information lawmakers had requested on nursing homes for months due to the Justice Department's inquiry. And we had spent some time talking about the original report that came out from Letitia James, the Attorney General out of New York. And she basically, her office there, did an independent audit, and they were analyzing the numbers, and they were saying, well, I think that there were actually more people who were sort of under the purview of this order, because remember, who died under this order. I mean, directly died as a result of this sort of negligence. I think the original misunderstanding here, or the misconnection, or the lies in terms of the reporting of the numbers, the differential was there was there are certain ways to count people. And what Governor Cuomo allegedly, according to Attorney General Letitia James, was doing was saying that if they were in a nursing home with COVID and they died in the nursing home with COVID, then they would count that as a nursing home fatality. That was a COVID death. But if they were in a nursing home and they got really sick and they needed to be hospitalized, well, then they would send them out of the nursing home. And if they died in the hospital, then they would say that was not a nursing home death. That was a hospital death. And so Letitia James goes back with the Attorney General's office and she says, well, that was like half the deaths. And many people are saying, well, if they were in a nursing home and they caught it and they died elsewhere, that should still be a nursing home death because they caught it in the nursing home. We're trying to identify the source of where the disease came from. Where they died is sort of irrelevant. And if that number was a lot higher than what the governor's office was reporting, well, the public should know that because some of those deaths likely could be attributable to what was the governor's order, which is to send infected people back into the nursing homes. And so you can see why this is so acidic. This is not good governance. And if the governor's office is trying to cover up for their own negligence, you can see why people are up in arms about it. Now, so there's more information coming out that the governor was basically going around and threatening people if they were sort of coloring outside the lines. This story came over from Breitbart.com. It says NY Assembly, so the New York Assembly person here. Okay, Assembly person. Let's get rid of that. Cuomo threatened to destroy me after nursing home scandal. Kim is the name of the Assembly person. Kim, who was publicly accused of Cuomo of lying about key aspects of the nursing home cover-up, told CNN that the Democratic governor called him directly and threatened his career. Quote, if I did not cover up for Melissa and what she said. He tried to pressure me to issue a statement, and it was a very traumatizing experience. We're going to hear from Kim here in a minute. We got a clip of the video, 2 clips. Cuomo, said Kim, continued to threaten his career, telling him that, quote, we're in this business together and we don't cross certain lines. And he said that I hadn't seen his wrath and that he can destroy me. That's nice, Kim said, adding that no man has ever spoken to him in that manner in his entire life. At some point, he tried to humiliate me, asking, are you a lawyer? I didn't think so. You're not a lawyer. It almost felt like in retrospect, he was trying to bait me and anger me and say something inappropriate. I'm glad I didn't. Kim's wife told CNN that she had overheard part of Kim's phone call with the governor, described the governor as loud and angry. She said she heard Cuomo say, who do you think you are? As well as words, my wrath, and that immediately after the phone call, her husband told her the governor threatened to destroy my life. So, the question about this stuff is how much of this was going on around the country? How often was this sort of standard operating procedure? Get in line, toe the party talking points, or we're gonna wreck you, right? That's it. And I'm gonna guess it's probably pretty prevalent, right? I feel like we saw a lot of this type of stuff going on. Sometimes people would come in and they would be a little bit skeptical about COVID or about the lockdowns or about the validity of what we were doing to deal with this thing. There'd be a little bit of skepticism, and then boom, a week later, we got to lock down everything. I was wrong. I'm sorry. The whole thing's a meltdown, right? So somebody got a nice talking to, and we saw that in the law as well, and we've seen this very regularly. We've seen sort of the orders come down from on high, and one of the best examples I can give you on this is, we had a mask mandate here in Arizona for some period of time, and then all of our individual cities started to impose their own individual mask mandates. And at some point, the police officers here in Scottsdale, they got a phone call and they said, go enforce the mask mandate, right? It was sort of a political call, because I know this because I got calls from a number of other small business owners around the valley and around Scottsdale, our offices in Scottsdale, and they're texting me, blowing up my phones. Hey, Scottsdale PD showed up at my gym today. Scottsdale PD showed up at my hair salon today. Scottsdale PD showed up at my restaurant today. What is going on? And it was basically within the same about 48 hours, right? So somebody got a call from, the city council made a call to the police department, or the mayor made a call, or something happened, and they said, well, people aren't complying with the mask mandates, go enforce them. Cops show up. Most of the cops, according to my friends, were not even wearing masks. They're just like, yeah, we're here, whatever. It's sort of a knock and announce type of proceeding where they were just doing the show of force all around the city of Scottsdale. And it was a political thing, right? It was somebody was not happy about the masks not being worn. They wanted to go out and do this big show of enforcement. And so a lot of this same stuff, I think, is being done sort of, up at the higher levels. People are having conversations about this stuff, and it's being done not out of a conversation about science or efficacy or whether this stuff works. It's about making political statements and sort of virtue signaling to those around you that this is how things are going to be done. And if you do not comply with us, there will be repercussions for you. And so this, New York Assemblyman was trying to say, hey, we've got some serious concerns. I think we can change course. I think there are ways that we can handle this better. And then he gets a call from Cuomo that says, shut your mouth, fall in line, or I will literally destroy your career. How much of that was going on, and how many people are dead because of that, because of this political bloviating that we see all around the country? This article goes on. Cuomo, Kim said, continued to reach out to the Assemblyman, telling the outlet that he received multiple calls from a no-caller ID number, followed by messages from Cuomo aides saying that the governor would like to speak with him again. He did not comply. He instructed Cuomo's office to communicate through his counsel, which he hired as a result of the first conversation, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, if somebody is really rattled that badly and they go hire an attorney, I mean, in my opinion, that just adds a lot of credibility to that. He's not going to take this abuse anymore. Cuomo, you want to call again? Talk to his attorney. He's tired. He's not going to take this type of harassment. He's got counsel involved now. And so he's taking some affirmative steps to make sure that he's not the victim of continued abuse from the governor. He goes on. Cuomo's office, however, denies that the governor threatened to destroy him. Cuomo's senior advisor, Azzopardi, told CNN, Kim's assertion that the governor said he would destroy him is false. The governor has 3 witnesses to the conversation. The operable words were to the effect of, I am from Queens too, and people still expect honor and integrity in politics, Azzopardi said in a statement, which we have. Cuomo since detailed what he described as a long and hostile relationship with the Democrat Assemblyman. And the New York Post quoted Kim in its original story, which blew the lid off the administration's nursing home cover-up. So, they've been sort of adversarial for some period of time. The article centered around an admission made by Melissa DeRosa, New York's secretary of the governor, who admitted that the administration covered up the magnitude of the coronavirus-related fatalities in nursing homes out of a fear of a federal investigation. Kim, who was on the call in question, said it sounded as if the administration, quote, admitted that they were trying to dodge having any incriminating evidence that might put the administration or the health department in further trouble with the Department of Justice. That's how I understand their reasoning of why they were able to share in real time the data, he told the Post, adding they had to first make sure that the state was protected against federal investigation. So, not only do we have some negligence, it sounds like, in the original order, but once the damage was being done, now you've got a cover-up, which makes it really bad, right? I mean, originally, the idea that you would send infected people back into a nursing home is sort of asinine to me. I think that probably most people would not have made that decision. Just guessing, I don't know. Certainly, we were not in Andrew Cuomo's shoes. Maybe they had no choice. Maybe there was no alternative. I don't know, but didn't sound like a good idea. Actually, for a long period of time, I was saying that the elderly were basically the only people who should be locked down and secluded, and the rest of society, I know there's a lot of criticism about this concept, but my sort of opinion was that the rest of society who is healthy, younger, not subject, in that sort of very low risk pool, why are we locking them down? Why are we locking everybody in this country down? Didn't make much sense to me. But certainly the elderly needed to be protected, secluded. They should get all the PPE. They should get all of the vaccines. We should sort of identify the highest risk categories of individuals in this country and make sure that they get the care. The other low risk individuals, if they want to go dancing, go to the bars, go to these types of things, all right, that's fine. If they're not afraid of COVID, that's okay, right? Let them go do that stuff. But that was just one person's perspective. So to me, it seemed obvious, but again, I wasn't the governor of New York, so maybe it wasn't as obvious for him at the time. So you can give him a little bit of leeway on that. Okay, not if you lost somebody, not if you lost your mother, father, brother, sister, family member, right? You're probably not going to have a lot of sympathy for Cuomo, but you can understand that in the middle of a crisis that you maybe make a bad decision, and it's difficult to fault somebody for that. If they're trying their best and they make a bad decision, it's just a bad decision. But when you try to cover it up, now we're talking about malfeasance. Now we're talking about negligence to a whole different degree. We're talking about, literally trying to sort of sweep all of this under the rug. And that is where I think some criminality may come into play. So now the FBI is involved. Now the U.S. attorney is involved. And we have Ron Kim here, the New York Assembly member, who said that he was the subject of this phone call with Cuomo. Here he is on MSNBC last night detailing more about the conversation.
Governor Cuomo tries to implicate you in the cover-up or threatens your livelihood if you don't lie for him. And that's what happened to me in the last 1 week. I was one of 6 lawmakers in that private meeting for 2 hours with Secretary DeRosa when she accidentally told us the truth, that there was a cover-up and fear that the information would be weaponized against Governor Cuomo. that moment, I had to tell the truth, and I had to let the public know what happened. And Governor Cuomo called me the next day at 8 p.m. while I was about to bathe my kids. I was with my wife, and for 10 minutes, he berated me. He yelled at me. He told me that my career will be over. He's been biting his tongue for months against me, and I had tonight, not tomorrow, tonight, to issue a new statement, essentially asking me to lie. And asking me, like, I heard and I saw a crime the other day. And he's asking me that I did not see that crime. And that was the line that a line that he crossed that can't be undone. And that's why I had no choice but to come out and speak up. As the chair of the Asian Committee in the State Assembly, it's my job to investigate. It's my job to ask these tough questions, and I shouldn't be punished for doing my job.
No, he shouldn't. And I'm a big fan of whistleblowers like that. When you see government malfeasance and you stand up and speak about it, you're sort of on the inside. I think that those people are largely heroes in this country. I've said the same thing about Snowden. I've said the same thing about Assange and other people. The people who are on the inside, who bring to the public's attention that this type of stuff is actually going on, I think are heroes. And they're critical to making this country function, because we cannot have our leaders just engaged in endless mounds of corruption and nobody report on it. And so I'm glad that this guy came to the forefront of all this and is telling us really what the conversation was and what happened. Here's one more clip of him last night.
I mean, it was loud enough for my wife to hear, and I tried to shield her, but she was in shock. She didn't get any sleep that night, and we were terrified. And, he left a shocking moment for all of us in our family. And I think every day Governor Cuomo and his team defends many different versions of the truth. While lawmakers like me, we're tasked to pursue the constant singular truth behind what happened in our nursing homes. And the truth is this: Governor Cuomo allowed his top donors to write business-friendly policies like legal immunity for nursing homes. And he ordered the state government to cover life and death information and took away our ability to legislate and change the outcomes of this pandemic. That's what happened. When you don't have the full data, how could we actually know what the problem is? And we could have potentially saved lives by intervening early and legislating. And he took that away from us. And instead of talking about that, he's distracting us and punting this and making up lies. And that's what his team is very good at doing. And it's unfortunate, but it's still not too late. And I hope he can still work with us in getting to the truth, because there's 15,000 people who lost loved ones in New York. And that's what's at stake. It's not about me. It's not about the governor. People forget this is about the families. This is about people who survived COVID. They still have healthcare issues. How are we going to take care of them with the extra healthcare costs? How are we going to get justice for those families? That's what we need to be focused on. And I hope we can get there soon.
Yeah. And, you can, if you're a politician, it's sort of part of your job operations, right? It's part of your procedure. It's your job description that you're going to go out there and you're always going to try to puff yourself up, and you're always going to try to take advantage of a crisis, and you're always going to want to be the leader, sort of rip your shirt open and show that you're Superman and that you're going to solve all of the world's problems. And so Governor Cuomo was doing that, right? I mean, he was sort of at the forefront of this stuff. We saw all of his press conferences day after day after day, almost sort of in parallel to what Trump and his team was doing with the coronavirus. And so, the media just needed sort of a counterbalance to what Trump was doing, and Cuomo fit the bill. And he was loving it up, lapping it up, got these awards, got all of these, the book deal and whatever. I think there was a poster made about him and how New York is so great. Okay, we can understand that is part of the job duty of a politician. But this is not the right crisis for that. Okay, if something happens, if a tanker explodes or something and there's not an ongoing crisis, go stand there by the burning building and we're going to prevent this and we're going to help all the victims and all of that stuff. But what Cuomo was doing was bloviating to the point where he had to create this narrative. He had to create this image that everything was under control and he was doing everything right. And so, people who were really in charge of writing rules and passing laws that could move the needle on solving the coronavirus crisis, like this guy, apparently, right? We don't know what his solution was or whether his involvement would have changed the course of any of this stuff. But the point here is that his hands were tied. He was not able to go out there and do his job as an assembly person, somebody elected with a constituency to represent. It sounds like the governor just sort of stonewalled everybody, said, we're taking charge of this. So if they want to do that, well, they got to take some of the ramifications of that. If there were, and it sounds like there were, an extra thousands and thousands of deaths in New York because of Cuomo's actions, well, if he wanted all the praise, he wanted all the glory from it, well, you got to take some of the bad parts as well. Those repercussions are coming his way, and Ron Kim is bringing those to light, and I think that he should be commended for that. So this is what the governor's office is responding with. Statement from the senior advisor to the governor. We're talking to Rich Azzopardi. He said, Mr. Kim is lying about his conversation with Governor Cuomo last night. I know because I was one of 3 people in the room when the phone call occurred. At no time did anyone threaten to destroy anyone with their wrath nor engage in a cover-up. That's beyond the pale. It is unfortunately part of a years-long pattern of lies by Mr. Kim against this administration. We did ask for Mr. Kim to do the honorable thing and put out a truthful statement after he told the governor he was misquoted in a news article, which he said he then tried to correct, but the reporter refused. Kim said that he would correct the story and then broke his word. No surprise. Instead, over the last 6 days, he has baselessly, there that word is again. Can we get some new words here, folks? Accused this administration of pay to play and obstruction of justice. These continued falsehoods are why the governor chose to speak out today. We will not allow an unscrupulous politician to deceive New Yorkers or distort the truth. Mr. Kim's current statements do not even align with the comments he made at the meeting. See below. He is without credibility, as his own words demonstrate. Lies have caused families grieving from COVID enough pain. We understand it is our obligation to correct misstatements so families understand the true facts during COVID. So we got the second part of his statement here, but basically it's kind of devolving into a he said, she said situation. Governor was not, I was there, 3 people were there. We didn't say that. Kim saying, no, I was there. I heard it. My wife heard it. I went and hired an attorney afterwards and said, I'm not talking to the governor anymore. All right. So you can sort of weigh the credibility as you will. Pick which side you think makes more sense. Now, we also have sort of a corroborating report from the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, who says, yeah, there's some pretty big problems here. The governor's numbers, the Department of Health, they don't really match with what we think the true numbers are. They're counting them in a way that affords them an extreme benefit of the doubt, one that is really not justified. So this is the second part of the governor's statements. Mr. Kim and the governor's office have had a long hostile relationship. The animosity initiated when Mr. Kim supported a bill protecting nail salon workers, only to do a 180-degree reversal after he received significant funding from the owners of nail salons. All right, so now it's sort of throwing mud at each other. All right, so now he's sort of making sure that you know that this guy is bought off by nail salons, apparently. He was criticized by good government groups at the time. Mr. Kim continued to receive funding from nail salon owners, continues his attempt. Okay, so it's an ongoing unethical situation. He's receiving funding from owners. Nail salon. We believe Kim continued his pay-to-play actions. To be clear, neither the governor nor his aides threatened any legislators at this meeting. It was considered positive by those who attended. It is distortions on the meeting. So all this is just sort of throwing mud. So you can factor that in. On the merits, Mr. Kim in the New York Post and Republicans argued that the state's 25th March order on nursing homes was bad policy. What they failed to mention is the state was following federal policy. And if the Post and Republicans want to play a political game, they should blame Donald Trump. And they should have blamed Donald Trump since March 25th when they promulgated the guidance. We will stick to the facts. So, I don't know. Did Donald Trump tell the United States to send sick nursing people back into nursing homes? I missed it, but maybe that is accurate. I don't know, but I think this is a New York isolated incident. I'm not hearing this same story all around the country. California, Arizona, Florida, the flyover country, right in the heartland of America. Was anybody else sending sick people back into nursing homes? I don't know. Maybe. We've got here, though, Republicans in New York are not happy about it. They're going to be investigating. A group of 9 Republicans on Wednesday asked the Senate Judiciary Committee to investigate Governor Cuomo's administration over what they call a cover-up, which is good. So if we're in a situation where it's he said, she said, Ron Kim says, nope, the governor said it. The governor says, nope, we didn't say it. I got my witnesses. You got your witnesses. Letitia James has her interpretation of the event. All right, so let's investigate it. Just go on, investigate everything. There's probably a lot of open meeting rules in New York. I don't know, but subpoena some emails, take a look at some phone records. open up the book so we can see what really went on here. The group, led by Senator Ted Cruz, wrote a letter calling the committee's chair, Senator Dick Durbin, to launch the probe after Cuomo's top aide told lawmakers the administration purposely withheld the state's nursing home death toll from federal prosecutors. Cuomo first addressed this episode on Monday this week, declined to apologize. Of course, apologize. Look, I have said repeatedly, we made a mistake in creating the void. The void allowed misinformation and conspiracy. And now people are left with the thought of, did my loved one have to die? And that is a brutal, brutal question to pose to a person. And I want everyone to know everything was done. Everything was done by the best minds and the best interest. And the last thing we wanted to do, the last thing that I wanted to do was aggravate a terrible situation. So apparently the void allowed misinformation and conspiracy. I'm so sick of this stuff. So sick of it. Anything that goes against a politician's political disposition is now misinformation and a conspiracy, or it's not, or it's just information and it's just an opinion. But we're seeing more and more of this language just across the board from everybody. Any position, any question, any inquiry is misinformation. It's dangerous misinformation, and it's also a conspiracy. All right. On Wednesday evening, former President Donald Trump addressed the scandal. He said, "I look at it, and it's surprising what happened in New York, and we did. We gave Cuomo him the Javits Center. We gave him the ship, the great hospital ship, and essentially they weren't used. Spent a lot of money, and they weren't used. You could have the patients go there. You could have people go. It would have saved a lot of lives. It's too bad." It is, right? It is too bad, and hopefully they get to the bottom of it. Here is the letter, as I mentioned, that Ted Cruz is sending over to Chairman Durbin. This was dated yesterday, sent over to the Honorable Dick Durbin over at the Senate Committee on the Judiciary over in Washington, D.C. He says, "Dear Chairman Durbin, last week, New York Post reported that Melissa DeRosa, a top aide to the governor, Andrew Cuomo of New York, told New York, a state of lawmakers, that Governor Cuomo and his senior staff engaged in a deliberate cover-up regarding New York's nursing home COVID-19 death. In a shockingly candid confession, she stated, 'We were in a position where we weren't sure if what we were going to give to the Department of Justice or what we give to you guys, what we start saying was going to be used against us, while we weren't sure if it was going to be an investigation.'" So kind of a jumbled sentence there, but basically, we don't know what to give to you because we don't want the Department of Justice to come in and investigate us. Got it. According to the New York Times, this confession is the latest instance in the governor's almost year-long attempt to brush away criticisms that his policies had allowed thousands of nursing home residents to die of the virus, because such criticisms would undermine his national image. Right? It's all about the image. In the early stage of the pandemic, the administration issued a March order. We already know all about that. Facilities had admitted nearly 6,000 COVID-19 patients directly from hospitals. We now know the Cuomo administration actively concealed the level of admissions and then intentionally underreported these admissions in a way that callously and recklessly put facility residents in danger and resulted in an unknown number of deaths. The Associated Press reports now the number of admissions was greater than 9,000, 40% higher than what the State Department previously released. The report also stated that the number of deaths had been underreported by as much as 50%, resulting in thousands of COVID-19 nursing home deaths that were not being reported properly. And that was the Letitia James statement, right? This was where they were saying that if you died in the nursing home, we count that. But if you died in the hospital and you were just transported out of the nursing home, we don't count that one. That's not a nursing home death. Letitia James came back and said, yeah, it is. Okay, you can't, when somebody's on their deathbed in a nursing home, you can't just ship them out and then claim that that didn't happen in a nursing home. That's not particularly ethical. Such underreporting hid the truth. There are many people who needlessly lost their lives. Those who deliberately withheld or directed others to withhold material information from the Department of Justice may be guilty of obstruction of justice, violating the False Claims Act and numerous other criminal violations. When Judge Garland testifies before this committee, we expect him to commit the Department of Justice to fully investigating this cover-up to determine whether any criminal laws were violated, to prosecute any violations. An investigation is rightly conducted behind closed doors. We will not provide timely and public accountability to those who played politics with COVID-19. And then this is the last page. We ask you to open an investigation. As you've stated before, the Senate Judiciary Committee, through its history, played a critical role in investigating violations of civil rights, overseeing the Department of Justice, holding hearings, and on and on and on. Signed by Ted Cruz. We also have Chuck Grassley, and then we got a number of other ones. Lindsey Graham's in the House, Mike Lee, Tom Cotton, Marsha Blackburn, Tom Tillis, Josh Hawley, John Cornyn, all signing off on it. So the Republicans are now diving into it fully. And he's catching it from all sides. You got the Republicans in Congress, the senators. You've also got Mayor DeBlasio, who's saying, well, this is just classic Cuomo bullying. And, these two have not gotten along too well, historically speaking, but they're both Democrats. They're both from the state of New York. And so, to see sort of intra-party fighting means that maybe there really is kind of something there, as we're seeing in the Republican Party. We're seeing a massive division there as well. So this is interesting. Let's take a look at this quote, this video from last night on MSNBC.
It's a sad thing to say, Mika, but that's classic Andrew Cuomo. A lot of people in New York State have received those phone calls. The bullying is nothing new.
All right.
Ron Kim, and it's very, very sad. No public servant, no person who's telling the truth should be treated that way. But yeah, the threats, the belittling, the demand that someone change their statement right that moment, many, many times I've heard that, and I know a lot of other people in this state have heard that.
All right, so there's another one from Governor Cuomo who says, his response to this, apparently, I'm not sure when this one was released. This looks like it came back out about 18 days ago on January 29th from the New York Post. Cuomo callously addresses the COVID nursing home report, saying, who cares? Who cares if they died in a hospital, died in a nursing home? They died. That's how he callously responded on Friday to a damning state attorney general's report that revealed his administration downplayed the total number of nursing home residents killed by COVID-19.
A third of all deaths in this nation are from nursing homes. New York State, we're only about 28% only, but we're below the national average in number of deaths in nursing homes. But who cares? 33, 28, died in a hospital, died in a nursing home. They died.
Well, I think a lot of people do actually care about that, because if it's if they died and they didn't need to die because you issued an order that sent sick people into nursing homes, let's say we have a nursing home that does not have any remnants of COVID in there and everything is fine and well until your order comes down and suddenly the hospitals are just shipping people who are sick into the nursing home, and somebody who otherwise would not have caught COVID now catches it as a direct result of your order and they die, people are going to care about that. Okay. It's negligence at minimum, it's criminality at the maximum. And so, to sort of poo-poo this stuff and just kind of put it by the wayside, I think it is in fact callous, and it's not something that he is going to get away with. As we can see, a lot of people are up in arms about this stuff, as they should be. All right, so we got a couple questions that came in. First one from Sharon Quidney says, Robert, couldn't this be a big class action lawsuit in the making? Probably, yeah. I'm not a class action lawyer, but I do know some of the basics. You need sort of a commonality of claims. You need sort of a group. In other words, the remedy needs to fit the entire group of the class, and there's a certification of the class and all of those different, there's I think 4 or 5 different requirements, and I think it would meet all of those. In this case, the government was negligent at minimum or grossly negligent, and it's arguable that Governor Cuomo, his direct order led to additional deaths of people who maybe didn't need to die. So I think that certainly if you are in New York and you are somebody who lost a loved one as a result of a nursing home, I think you could probably go back and just take a look at the evidence. Was this nursing home one of the nursing homes that got mandated to take in sick individuals? If they were, there's sort of causation there, right? There's a direct chain from your loss back to the governor's order. And I'm going to guess that, 9,000, 6,000 people, whatever the final death tolls were, they may be able to consolidate their claims and bring a substantive class action. Good to see you, Sharon. We got Ma Fox says the amount of wrongful death lawsuits could literally bankrupt New York City for the next decade. They're already having huge budget problems. Interesting, Ma. I didn't know that about the budget, but it makes sense. I mean, I think people are fleeing New York. People are fleeing California. People are trying to sort of escape the lockdowns. I'll tell you, here in Arizona, we have a massive influx of people coming here because we're kind of open and we're not frozen. It's very interesting what's happening to some of these big cities. And in New York, right, if your entire population is fleeing because of COVID and because of the lockdown orders and because of some of these restrictions, well, your tax base is just gone. It's just gone with the wind. And that's going to be a big problem. And so if there was a class action, if there was a lawsuit or wrongful death lawsuits, this could have very, very long-lasting repercussions for the entire state. And in this situation, you can understand why the governor might want to cover this up, might want to sort of make sure that all of this is swept under the rug. I don't know why people in government think that they can do that these days. I mean, everything is sort of under scrutiny, especially in a situation like this. And it's just been weird how the narrative shifted on this one. So it's a very good point, Ma. Thanks for chiming in on that. What did I just do? All right. So we got another one here from Just XUXA says, so if Janice Dean would be involved, I'm sure she lost both in-law parents. If so, Janice Dean would be involved. I'm sure she lost both in-law parents. Yeah, it's awful. I mean, people are dying all over this country at a very fast pace. It's awful. It's very sad. And, you know, if there was some level of criminality here from Cuomo to cover it up, like I said, I'm a little bit more lenient on the original mistake. I can understand making an original mistake, but you also got to own up to that. And when you start covering stuff up, now you're introducing a new element of malfeasance into the original wrong. It's like, you know, two wrongs sort of stack on top of each other. We have Sharon Quidney says, all this politicization of everything not only infringes on people's rights and personal liberties, in this case, it's also cost people's lives. When is enough going to be enough? Yeah. And that was exactly the point that I was making, right? It's okay if a politician wants to go and read a book to the kindergarten kids. Okay. Nobody cares. Nobody believes he's actually getting enjoyment out of that. Hey, little Johnny, let's learn about the ABCs today. You think Cuomo cares about that or Trump cares about that? I don't. But they're doing it because it's part of their public image. It's part of their public persona. They got to puff themselves up as politicians. And that's what politicians do when you have a crisis. And so Cuomo was really basking in the limelight, and unfortunately people were dying as a result of that. So sort of one of the more egregious types of governmental misconducts. We have this from Nadarb Lasir says, will Fauci finally be questioned on his decisions during this whole pandemic? Fauci holds up New York as a model for fighting coronavirus. They did it correctly. That story came over from Yellen Dasanova. That was posted back on July 18, 2020. And, well, Fauci, you know, I don't understand the admiration with Dr. Fauci. I have heard him change his opinions like 10 times, I think. I have a list in my phone that I just started writing down. Oh, it used to be this, now it's this, now it's that, now it's this one. And you just go, what? I thought he was supposed to be an expert. Is there a methodology to this thing or not? Or all of you just making it up on the fly? Because that's what it feels like. And if that's the case, that's okay, but you got to tell us about it. Okay, you can't tell us that masks don't work, then masks work. Now, double mask. What are you talking about? Then, you know, lockdowns are great for you until the World Health Organization says they're not so great because they're disadvantaging the poor. All right, so what should we open back up now? What do you want to do? Vaccines work, but you still have to be quarantined after the vaccines are in place. What are you talking about? So the whole thing is certainly messy, but I certainly, you know, I don't think that Fauci will be held accountable for any of this stuff because he's just a doctor and he's just trying his best and he's trying to do what basically the establishment wants done. He's the spokesperson for that. And they say, go out there and say, put a mask on. All right, go out there, put a mask on. Go out there and say, don't put a mask on. All right, I'll go out there and say, don't put a mask on. And just around and around we go. Watching You Daily says, didn't Whitmer do the same as Cuomo? Good question. I don't know. Watching You Daily. I'm not real sure about that. Maybe. Right, maybe. I just don't know. I haven't seen the headlines on that, but if Cuomo goes, then maybe they're coming after her next. It just didn't make much sense to me either way. I mean, why would you know that the elderly are very vulnerable. Why would you send sick people to the most vulnerable population? We have Nadarb says, this is going to be a tough one. It's either C or D, going to say C, final answer. The question being, best place to treat COVID-19 patients? A, hospital. B, Navy hospital ship. C, nursing home. D, retirement home. Well, that's going to be a tough one. It's either C or D. Cuomo says it's going to be C, final answer, nursing home. We're sorry. That's the wrong answer. We were looking for A or B, nursing home or the hospital ship. Retirement home, not so good. Nursing home, definitely not the right answer. You're out. Thanks for playing, Cuomo. Then we have over here, Realtor Patty says, Tramp said in last night's interview, he sent Cuomo a medical ship to New York. He didn't use it. Yeah, and we just saw that clip over there from, I think Miss Faith clipped that in one of our slides. So, you know, there are alternatives to this stuff. But sending sick people back into the elderly centers seemed to me to be just kind of obviously a bad idea. Thank you, Realtor Patty, number 14. Then we have Just XUXA says, Michigan governor so kindly put young COVID patients in nursing home. One young man beat an elderly guy using him as a punching bag, all caught on video. So Cuomo is not the only idiot governor out there. I definitely didn't say that, right? There's a lot more idiot governors out there than just Cuomo. This is not an isolated incident. Thank you, Just XUXA. We got Want to Know says, don't forget Cuomo bro beating up Florida and Trump every night trying to quarantine Florida. Yeah, I mean, DeSantis was out there. He had the beaches open and they were coming down on him every day. This guy's a maniac, right? He's out there literally killing people. For what? Having people out in the open sunlight at a beach that is large enough with very active air and the sun and ultraviolet rays from coming down from the sun, just disinfecting everything in sight. He's getting skewered for that day after day after day. Even here in Arizona, Doug Ducey, he's been just getting skewered over this stuff. He's literally killing people. Remember people on Twitter were out there going, every day, Donald Trump's golfing again. There are literally like 747s of dead people falling out of the skies from COVID, and Trump's golfing and Trump's doing this and Trump's doing that. Well, Cuomo was literally sending sick people back into nursing homes, and it was his order that was directly resulted in probably literally thousands of deaths. And so, one side got skewered, the other side got a Grammy or an Emmy or whatever he got. We got Liberty or Death, who said, you said assemblyman. That's gendered language. I impeach you. I deserve to be impeached for that. First of all, it's 2021. Okay. I can't assume his gender. That is extremely biased of me. And it's probably my teeming white privilege just emanating out of my pores. I deserve to be impeached. Thank you for holding me accountable there. Liberty or Death. We got Nadar Blasier says the governor of Michigan apparently did the same. Stephen Crowder has been requesting Freedom of Information Act requests and is holding a protest against her refusal to release all of the info. All right, so yeah, we got some confirmations that Whitmer is doing the same thing. Want to Know says the big problem is on the Revolution on Fox trying to prove Fauci and his partner paid the Wuhan lab genetically modify from bat to human because Obama signed a law, couldn't do it in the U.S., and then got out. And yeah, I think that is sort of in alignment with that concept of, what do they call it? Sort of an incremental evolution of the virus. I know there's a specific term for it, but in other words, what they're doing is they're trying to accelerate the evolution of certain viruses. So they will sort of make copies of a copy 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 of the virus, because that sort of models evolution, the reproduction of it. And they're trying to take a benign virus and see how it evolves into a deadly virus. And they're actually doing this research around the world. And one of the allegations was that they were doing that in Wuhan, and it got out, and that's what started this whole debacle. We got another one from Get Some Skate says, why are politicians dictating what happens in healthcare at all? As a nurse, I've repeatedly found this to be absurd. From politicians to insurance companies, who knows better about how to handle a healthcare crisis than healthcare workers? It's a great point. Yeah, I don't know, right? And I also don't know why you're not allowed to talk about a lot of this stuff. Okay, all of these big tech companies now are saying you can't, if you're a doctor on YouTube. I mean, I've heard of doctors getting banned and removed from YouTube from talking about alternative medicine. And you think, well, they're kind of more qualified than some moderators somewhere on some platform. So why are we not listening to them, or at least getting their opinion? All right, our last one on this segment is Want to Know says, what about kids committing suicide, hungry, and child abuse? Lost education restaurants closed. There's the next big death rates. Yeah, so suicides are up, and child abuse is up. Alcoholism is up. Domestic violence is up. It's not good. And, it's been a year now, folks, right? The original national emergency was declared March, I think, 13th of 2020. We're coming up on a year of this stuff. Supposed to be 15 days to slow the spread, then just a couple more extensions here and there. Fast forward, it's been a year. And I know a lot of kids have not been in school. A lot of people have been petrified to even leave their homes. They've been locked down. And it's not good for the mental health of this country. And I think I was commenting over on Scott Alexander's blog, where he was talking about the long-term effects of some of this stuff, that there was a whole generation of people who came out of being kids during the World War II era. And they did things a certain way because of that experience, because of rationing, because of the way that society was structured for that short period of time in our history, that they just sort of assimilated that into their lifestyle, and that's how they are living 30 years from now. And so the question is, well, we've had a bunch of kids who know that you're not supposed to have any human contact, no hugs, no high fives, no handshakes. You're not even supposed to be in the same room with them. And so now they've been living that way, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids, 4-year-old kids for a year now, and it's not letting up anytime soon. What is that going to lead to down the road? Are they going to have a permanent impact from this type of situation? And I think the answer is probably yes. I don't have any kids, but I would guess that the answer is yes on that. So those questions came over from locals.com/watching the watchers. If you want to be a part of the Q&A, you can go on over there, support the show, and ask your questions.